all join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. You're here for the first time. As you're here, what brings you here?
I came with my friend, and my mother in spirit is here.
Yeah, she's a good friend, huh?
She's a wonderful friend.
Yeah.
She's been here before, but when it was the other place.
Oh, wow. Long time ago.
Yeah,
Downtown. Or Buddha for you.
Sweden.
Oh, whoa, wow.
That long
Yeah.
ago.
Well, at least 8 years ago then. Yeah,
more like close to 40.
40 years. Yeah. I've met family members of people who were married here in the 40s, and we have people here whose parents were married here. Yeah, I mean, we're coming up on, this is 98 years that this been here. So we have come in contact with many people who've had multiple generations of stuff happening here. So welcome back after 40 years.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Do you remember where you sat 40 years ago?
It was over here.
Yeah, same pew. Do you want that seat? You're good? Yeah.
Well, and I got a message from the woman that night that I was going to have a baby,
Wow,
and it was my daughter.
wow,
And she passed away last summer.
yeah.
We were commemorating her passing, and I said, come here.
Yeah.
And I saw the address. I
Oh.
thought, oh, I've been there.
Isn't that wow? I'm covered in goosebumps.
Me too.
Yeah. And what's your name?
Yeah.
Anne. Not really worried about anybody else here tonight. We're all here for Anne.
Yes.
You know, it's wild because we were downtown for 10 years. And for those of you who don't know, briefly without going into the whole story, but yeah, we were downtown for 10 years before buying this building 8 years ago. And when Maggie and I first came to look at it, end of 2016, you know, it's like Swedenborgian, Emanuel Swedenborg, who is this? What is this? What did they do? And I spent probably 15 minutes Googling, you know, Emanuel Swedenborg and the Swedenborgian tradition and what they did. They were Christian mystics. He was in 17 something. This was their congregation, came together in the 1920s. They built this in 1927. But I don't know if you know this, D.T. Suzuki, who's a Japanese Buddhist priest, scholar, wonderful teacher, very instrumental in Buddhism, kind of taking root in America in the 20s. He said that for all you Western people who are interested in Buddhism, you should follow the teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg. And the Reverend who was here for the last 7 years was a member of the Japanese Buddhist temple downtown. So that was enough of Google searching to tell me they did good stuff in here for 95 years, you know? So yeah. And they were going to tear it down and turn it into condos. Yeah. So I'm glad we're here. Yeah. That's a tough one to follow, but anyone else want to share why they're here? Or we can just get started. Anyone else? Yeah, nobody's going after that. That's good. Do you want to go? You're new, right? But you're afraid to raise your hand?
No, I'm good.
You're good, all right.
I'm just being mean.
All right. So we'll start with a meditation practice. For those who are maybe here for the first time or sitting for the first time, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Do not judge your practice, meaning do not ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos, not escaping from it. So most important, especially if you're new, don't expect anything. Your mind's not going to shut off. It's not going to go blank. You won't think nothing. Your mind will continue to race, as it always does. I will say things periodically to remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to present moment. And again, most important, do not expect anything. Posture, just find a position that's comfortable. If you're on a cushion, help slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. If you're in a bench or chair, just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders. Hands can be on the knees or on the lap, whatever's comfortable. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, we'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from your practice. Just sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. Breathing in, follow breath in, breathing out, follow breath out. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. The most important is the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where we come from or what we believe in or where we think we're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every single day. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This is not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation isn't going to fix that. It helps you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can then make changes in your actual life. Meditation is direct perception into the present moment. And most people are not okay with the present moment. So they spend their entire lives running from something or someone and running towards something or someone. And this practice is learning to be with life as it arises. And as we know, that's not always pleasant. Life is filled with conflicts, difficulties, challenges. And this practice is learning to be with that as it arises, recognizing our thoughts and words and actions in each moment, and responding to everything and everyone with loving kindness and compassion, not with anger and hatred. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in every moment. And that's it. That never changes. I try to keep this practice very simple and not complicate things. They say the Buddha taught the same thing for 45 years before he passed, and he taught it 84,000 different ways. And it ultimately boils down to absolute awareness of all your thoughts, all your words, and all your actions. And if your thoughts and words and actions are coming from a place of greed and anger and ignorance, the life around you will be filled with greed and anger and ignorance. And if your thoughts are coming from a place of generosity and compassion and wisdom, then more likely to build a life around you filled with generosity, compassion, and wisdom. The challenge is sometimes no matter how kind and wonderful and compassionate and loving that you are, doesn't mean other people are going to be that way. And that's when you need to practice even harder. And when your love and compassion and kindness is met with hatred and anger and rage, you pour more love and kindness and compassion. But it's a practice. It's not a 6-week course. It's not something that in 3 months you figured it all out and you're ready for the next thing. I've been calling this Intro to Buddhism and Meditation for 15 years, and if I'm alive for another 15 years, I'll be doing the same darn thing and calling it the same darn thing. Because I don't know what the advanced stuff is, but I'm not ready for that. That's for sure. Often people say to me, like, I've heard the Four Noble Truths so many times. Yeah, but can you live them? This practice is not about intellectual knowledge or how many things you can memorize or what numbers you can learn or what words you can learn that sound Buddhist. You know? Doesn't matter how good your pronunciation is of certain words in Pali or whatever language. Can you think good thoughts, speak good words, and do good deeds every moment, every day? And the answer to that for most people is no. So what that means is we do not understand the Four Noble Truths. The very foundational Buddhist teaching of life is filled with dukkha, suffering, discomfort, angst. Doesn't mean all of life sucks. It means that we're going to suffer a lot in our lives. Some of it is heavy and traumatic and death and loss and trauma and horrific things going on in the world. And some of it is little silly petty stuff like you don't like the traffic jam that you're in, the car's going too slow, they got in your way, your coffee wasn't made properly, your sandwich wasn't toasted to perfection. Little things that don't really matter but annoy you all day long and just build up. So we experience these things throughout our lives. The second thing he says is, what's the cause of this? The cause is our greed, craving, desire, wanting things to be different from how they are, our anger, and our ignorance, meaning we're ignoring reality. And we're stuck in our perception of reality, which means all day long we're stuck in what we want. And we operate from that place. What do we want today? What do we need today? What must we get today? So most of our days is spent thinking about us. The second thing is we're angry. We're angry at the way things are. We're angry at ourselves. We're angry at, people who've done things in the past. And so there's this constant anger that's just like a cloud hanging over our heads. And it's not pretty. And the ignorance is ignoring the reality and stuck in our perception. And so the practice is generosity, to give your time, your attention, your heart, your smile, your love, whatever you can give to people and animals and everyone in the world, in all directions, all time, all space. and to have compassion to overcome anger, especially towards ourselves. It's where people usually lack compassion the most. People love practicing loving kindness and compassion towards others. And then the idea comes up of actually having compassion towards yourself, and people like freeze. They don't know what it would be like to actually love themselves or take care of themselves. Right? I don't mean just go to a spa, but actually talk gently to yourself, listen gently to yourself. Don't beat yourself up so much. The bar that you've raised so high that you think you must accomplish and exceed that you're probably never going to get to, because anytime you get close, you keep raising it. Just shatter the bar. As Suzuki Roshi used to say, Shunryu Suzuki, both San Francisco Zen Center in the early 50s, taught there in the 60s, and he would say, you're all perfect exactly how you are, and you all could use a little improvement. Right? So don't you feel better coming here tonight knowing that you're perfect? And you just have a little ways to go, a few little things to work on, that's it. So many people carry this laundry list of so many things that are wrong with you. You know? And you tell people about it all day long, all year long. This is what's wrong with me. These are my problems. I need to get fixed. I need to get healed. This is what's going on. And I'm not saying you don't have stuff. That's not my point. But do you, if I said this a lot on Saturday, do you spend any time talking about how wonderful and kind and gentle you are? Because you are. Where's that list? Right? Hang on. Do those things more often. That's having compassion and love for yourself. Those of you who are in therapy, which is probably half the people in the room, and the other half are therapists, next time you go to therapy, shock your therapist and sit down and just for an hour, tell them all the wonderful things about yourself. Seriously, I mean, I'm not even joking, right? And see how you feel. Yes, it's nice to vent and complain and talk about everything in your past. I get it, it helps. I'm not saying stop that. But once in a while, pay somebody X amount of dollars for an hour and just sit there and tell them how wonderful you are. And then leave after and see how you feel. See what the difference is. All right? So try that. Have compassion for yourself. The third noble truth is the ending of suffering. Liberation, nirvana, and freedom from suffering. And the fourth is the path, the Eightfold Path. Having right views or correct views, thoughts, speech, action. Being mindful of your karma, your thoughts, your words, and your actions, what you bring into the world. Livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. These 8 steps, all of that's on Google for free. Like that is it. That is what the Buddha taught for 45 years, the Four Noble Truths. The fourth of them being the Eightfold Path. That's it. And often people think like, I got it. What's next? No. As soon as you think you got it and there is a next, you do not understand the Four Noble Truths. Because you're craving and desiring more, as if another book and another teaching and another language and another class and another this and another that is going to be enough. You have every opportunity all day long to practice kindness. You can complain about all you want about everything that's going on in the world, and there are 10,000 people 5 miles from here downtown on the streets starving and homeless. Are you helping them? So before we complain about everything else you're going to complain about, what about all the people you passed today that have nowhere to live and nothing to eat? So easy to complain about global stuff. Also so easy to figure out what can you do to make a difference here now. Or just spend hours arguing with people online. That's up to you. But people are driving past homeless people, hungry, starving on the streets, complaining about everybody else starving in the world. I'm not saying those are good things. But there are ways you can help people now. But you don't, because it's easier to complain. I shouldn't say you don't. I'm sure all of you do. But the people who aren't here, talking about them. All the mean people who aren't here. You're all the wonderful ones. But think about those things. So with that, I'm going to pause. We'll open up to questions, comments. I didn't welcome our virtual folks at the beginning. My apologies. Glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to say hello as you are. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. I'll do my best to respond. and we use the rest of our brief time for questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, or anything.
You were talking about, the good and focusing on all the good that we do, or, good for yourself, and not getting caught up. I kind of got lost there a little bit, but what I was trying to get at is that I guess sometimes that, that laundry list of things that we get caught up with that, I suck at this and this and this. For me, sometimes I see it as, this is things I can get to work on, right? But for me, also, one of the things that I get stuck on is the pettiness that kind of brings me down in a sense, where it's like, crap, if I can't get over this petty crap, how am I going to handle all the other?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I that's why I talk about all the time practicing. People want to understand when it comes to non-attachment and dealing with heavy trauma and death and loss and things that are really profound and have huge impacts in our lives. Yet we're angry because our sandwich wasn't made properly. I'm not even joking about this. I say those things jokingly, but these are the types of things I'm talking about as a practice, to practice non-attachment, to practice patience, to figure out, what am I so stuck on? Why does it bother me that my sandwich wasn't made properly or my coffee doesn't taste exactly how we want it to? Can we just have gratitude for being able to eat and being able to have coffee? Can we just have gratitude for having the clothes to wear that we have, which is probably everyone in this room has way more clothes than they need. That's why I talk about those silly examples of just put on clothes, right? Go to a restaurant and just have them bring you food. Just learn to appreciate what we have. Because then when serious things happen in our lives, we cannot face them. Because we have no ability to even embrace little challenges. Practice with those things. Yeah.
I just spent the afternoon hanging out with a 4-year-old, and her mother just, she died of drug and alcohol abuse, and her father's in jail. And so now my friend is taking care of her. My friend went from being a single girl with a roommate to now having a 4-year-old. And this 4-year-old is the most upbeat kid and smartest and funniest kid I've ever met. She spent a minute telling me how awesome she is, how she's strong, how she's brave, how she's kind. I went to the park with her, and she was so helpful and playful with all the kids. She held she met these 2 little sisters, and she held their hands and showed them how to go on the teeter-totter. I mean, this is a kid who is suffering devastating loss that no child should ever have to go through. And she is exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
She's able to tell herself kind things to herself, even though she's suffering devastating loss.
Yeah. Fully present, experiencing joy in each moment.
And she's 4.
And she's 4.
And the world's going to tell her.
Yeah. Say it again louder.
And the world's going to tell her not to.
And Theo said, and the world's going to tell her not to. And so here we are, no longer 4, and the world has told you over and over and over again not to. Again, I talked about this on Saturday, but every billboard, every social media ad, everything is telling you what to think, what to believe, how to feel, what to buy, what medication to take, where to go. Everyone is telling you what to do. And Buddhist practice, that's what they call it, against the stream. It is going against mainstream society. It is not about making sure you get everything that you want in life. And too many people come into Buddhism thinking well, I'm just going to get everything I want and then I'm going to be okay. No, this practice is reminding us that we already have everything that we need. That's it. This is not about what you want. This is about, do you have what you need? And to me, the Buddha, again, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not living this life of, renouncing worldly possessions as he did, but the Buddha had 7 items. He had a robe, he had a bowl, he had a razor to shave his head, he had a sharpener to shave the razor, Had some sort of strainer to sift out, so it didn't kill bugs, things like that with water. Yarn, needle to sew the robe. I got 7 items in my pocket. And he had community. Yeah. But again, the message here is not that we need to get down to 7 items, but to recognize there are things that we want and crave and desire our whole life. And then we ask ourselves, why am I suffering? We suffer because we don't get what we want. Well, if you stop wanting so many darn things, you don't suffer as much. It doesn't mean you're not still going to suffer. You are going to suffer. I mean, the Buddha, that's the first thing he said, right? I mean, Buddhism, especially if you're new to it, sounds so miserable and depressing because day 1, page 1 is like, life is filled with suffering. You're like, well, that sucks, right? I'm going to pick something else to study and learn about. But there's more to that. Yes, we are going to experience stuff in our lives, but the reality is, and for me as a practitioner, I don't wake up and think like, am I going to end my suffering tomorrow? I just think, can I suffer less today than I did yesterday? But then having to be honest with ourselves about why am I suffering? What are my cravings? What are my desires? What am I attached to? What do I want? And then balance that with actually looking at what do I actually need? And what we actually need is very little. Society, family, friends, social media, everything will tell you you need a lot more than what you have. Not too many things or people or places are out there telling you that you have enough. Every iPhone you have, the last one probably worked just fine. But Verizon had a good deal, so needed a new one. Questions? Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about Buddhism in the context of emotional repression. And one of the things that comes up is like, because there's this like greed, anger, ignorance, right? And anger is an emotion. And I feel like it's very hard sometimes I've been repressed all my life emotionally. And I know that. And I'm just wondering, and I know Zen tales about like people experiencing anger and then like leaving it, right? Oh, sorry, bye. And I love those, but like I'm just wondering like if there's a perspective that you have on like emotional release, especially around those emotions that we have that are considered suffering emotions, so emotions that lead us to suffering.
Yeah. So the question for those who didn't hear it, to paraphrase in brief, is kind of the correlation and the connection between Buddhism and potential repression of emotions. And I want to be very clear, not just for you, Theo, but for everybody, especially if you're new, that Buddhism does not mean that emotions don't exist or that they're not important or that they should be ignored. Absolutely not. I think most important is, well, I shouldn't say most important. One important piece to start with is to understand that as emotions arise, right, no matter how much Buddhist practice you do, as us unenlightened human beings, no matter how much Buddhist practice you do, no matter how many books you read, no matter how much meditation you do, you are going to have emotions the rest of your life. Yep. And I suggest as a practitioner, you should always see them. You should always honor them. You should always validate them. You should always share them. You should always express them in healthy ways. The last thing you want to do is repress them and pretend they don't exist. Very often, yes, Buddhism can kind of come off potentially. And I know even in things I might say, might kind of have this air of like, well, just avoid the emotion. But no, you don't want to avoid them. You don't want to ignore them because, as the old Freud teaching, they're just going to come back stronger, right? So even from a Western psychological view, definitely don't suppress them. Definitely don't ignore them. Don't avoid them. But a couple things. First is understand that as they arise, they are also going to what? Change. Thus the teaching of impermanence. So for those who don't know, impermanence is one of just foundational Buddhist teachings, that everything will come together for a period of time and then cease to exist. All phenomena comes together for a period of time and then cease to exist. That's every person in your life right now, at some point in time will be gone. Every place, everything, every aspect of your life at some point in time will be gone. This is where gratitude and appreciation comes in, because it tells us that we don't know when we're going to lose people or places or things. So we have tremendous gratitude for all we have. This is really difficult for most people because we're too busy wrapped up thinking about everything we want and need, and not wrapped up in thinking about how can I appreciate and have true gratitude for everything I have. Because again, our loop is telling us, what do I need? What do I want? With emotions, in a way, it's kind of the same thing that says, see the emotion as it arises. First and foremost, understand it's going to change, right? So you've heard me talk about this forever. But for me, growing up 25 years filled with anger and depression, when you're angry and depressed, from my own experience, there's no vision or sight or idea that that's going to go away. You're like, well, this sucks. Anger, depression is never going to leave. It's just going to be this vicious cycle. What I learned through Buddhist practice is that will change. So, when I started with this practice, the idea was that as anger arose, I would be like, oh, this is anger. Oh, this is depression. This sucks. This is not fun. But this will go away. It could be an hour. It could be a month. We don't know. But something will change it. And for me, very personally, as a practice, it was really important to understand that when that emotion of anger and depression started to arise, knowing the simple fact that I knew 100% without a doubt it was going to go away, actually expedited and helped it go away. It still didn't make it feel good when it was there, right? So to me, that was a very big first step. The second piece, which is really tied to something you shared about, that the suffering we experience is kind of coming from these emotions, is to understand why. And this does take some investigating, it takes some exploration, it takes some real kind of a deep dive into, okay, well, why am I depressed? Why am I angry? Well, typically we get angry when we don't get what we want, when life isn't going how it should, when we feel we're not enough, when we think we should be something else, when we feel we should have accomplished something else. So very often our anger, I don't want to say always, but it's because something's not going how we want it to. And if we can remove this, or at least decrease this desire for things to be different from how they are, then this anger will decrease as well. Not simple, but have you heard me tell the baseball bat story? I haven't told this in a long time.
Maybe.
I haven't told it in a while. So, I started this practice I was 20 years old. So 30 years ago, I started this practice. It became a daily practice of mine. I've been doing this practice every single day for 23 years, right? And I came back from the monastery. I was back maybe 9 months or a year. This is 2007. And we're at the downtown temple. And I was driving, and I had just come back from Taiwan. So I'm like, I'm kind of in like, am I going to be a monk? Am I not a monk? I was in this like in-between phase of like, what am I even doing? I just left this corporate life. I want to live monk life. I'm starting this little Buddhist thing, but I still really like my convertible Mustang. Kind of in between, again, this is 17, 18 years ago. And so I'm coming off the freeway, going to downtown Temple, getting off at 2nd Ave there, or whatever it was. And 2 lanes merge into one. And as we're getting off, I cut in front of the other person, right? So I'm driving tops down. All of a sudden, I get hit with something, right? You never heard the story, huh?
No.
Yeah.
This is great.
I haven't told this in a while. I used to tell this all the time. And so I got hit with something. And all of a sudden, it happened so much quicker than it takes to tell it. But what had happened was there were like 3 or 4 kids in the car next to me. And probably high school kids, college kids, whatever. They took a 32-ounce, 64-ounce, whatever, big gulp, filled with Hawaiian punch. They threw it at the car. And dude, it was a perfect shot. Like tops down, it hit right against the side of the, where the window was down. Lid comes off, and it just covers me in Hawaiian punch. And Hawaiian punch. I mean, instantly, the color, the smell, the taste, like I'm just drenched in Hawaiian punch. And what had happened was, when it immediately happened, my first immediate reaction, like instantly, I started to laugh. I started to laugh because I was amazed at what a good shot it was. I was that 16-year-old punk who would have been pissed off that somebody cut me off, and I would have had some ridiculous big gulp, and I would have thrown it at the car that cut me off. And it hit exactly where I would have wanted it to hit, because if it hits too low on the car, it just hits the outside of the car. If it's too high, I'm a short dude, it goes over my head. But it was a perfect shot, so I laughed at that. And then, 10 seconds later, whatever, after I'm like laughing because I'm just like covered in wine. Then I got really sad. I got really sad that the fact that I got in front of that car led us to a situation where these kids threw that. And again, the sadness was I was that kid who, just because somebody got in front of me, I would have thrown something at them, Now, if this had been years earlier, I would have chased him down. The baseball bat that was in my trunk would have come in. That's why I call it the baseball bat story, because it would have become a baseball bat adventure with this other vehicle. Instead, laughter, sadness, I drive down to Temple. My buddy came out. He's like, what happened to you? I told him the whole story. And it wasn't until I think later that night or whatever that I realized not one moment did anger arise. Now, I'm not saying that I had been like instantly cured or, all anger was never going to arise in me again. But in this moment, for a kid who grew up so triggered, so angry, if anybody looked at me the wrong way, I would have punched him. I'm not kidding. This did not occur. I was like, man, this stuff works. This practice works. But it has to be the cultivation of compassion and love for yourself that says we are human. We don't know how long we have. We don't know when life is going to end. And all these little things. Yes, there are big, heavy, traumatic things that should worry us and bother us and we should fight for. I'm not suggesting we stop. But I am suggesting you look at the little things throughout your day that are pissing you off and realizing that a majority of them, it's just time to move on from those things. And whatever you are is enough. When you stop feeling like you have to be someone else and accomplishing something else because you've had that in your head your whole life, when you drop that story, I had to drop my story of being the successful kid coming in a, upper class Jewish family. You got to be the doctor or the lawyer or the consultant. You got to have the money and the houses and the cars. You got to play that mold, and you get really good at it. And you realize, wait a minute, I'm 25, 28 years old. I'm miserable. Why? Because I'm doing what everybody else wants me to do. What do I want to do? When you drop that, your life changes drastically. Just driving home the same shit I've been telling you for 2 years. Yeah.
What'd you do with the car?
Oh, we just wiped it up.
Okay, is it like still around?
Oh no, it's gone. Yeah, I eventually, my attachment to the nice cars, I eventually got over that too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I just cruise a Ferrari now. It's not red though; it's white.
Red interior.
You gotta be grateful for what you have.
Exactly. Yeah, I got to be grateful for that Ferrari. What else? One or two more questions before we close.
I got a really quick one.
Yeah.
I actually responded compassionately to my racist, homophobic brother-in-law,
Yeah.
who said some awful things where in the past I would have gone off on him. But it raised a question for me. You quote, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher his first name.
Yeah.
Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh,
Yep.
where he said all views are wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, if my brother-in-law's view that homophobia and racism is that it's cool and that black people and gay people should be discriminated against, then that's no more wrong than my view that says that stuff has to be fought.
Sure.
And how do we take a stand
Yeah.
for what's right if we don't have a view?
Absolutely. Yeah. Nice light question to close on. But
Quick one.
Super. Yeah. Let me just sum this up for you. So let me back up to go back to kind of the teaching from Thich Nhat Hanh. Around, and your question, for those who didn't hear it, is around, it was your brother, someone someone in your family making racist, homophobic remarks. The teaching around Thich Nhat Hanh's all views are wrong. How does that all work? That's in essence your question for those who didn't hear it. So the teaching is, and there's a YouTube clip from Thich Nhat Hanh. It's, I think, 7 minutes and 42 seconds. The title of it is called "What is Nirvana?" And what he's sharing in this teaching, and yes, that's the part that I always quote, is he says all views are wrong. Now, what I want to, before getting to the specific question, I want to touch on that briefly for those who've never heard it. When I first heard that, my reaction was like, I don't like that. What do you mean all views are wrong? And the more I sat with that, over time, what I began to realize in that teaching, to me, the way I interpret that teaching is that we all have our views. And we think our views are right. And therefore, we think somebody else's views are wrong. Now, without even getting into the specifics yet, what this teaching is telling me over time was to understand that it's not about views being right or wrong. This teaching is not about views being good or bad. This teaching is about understanding that everybody has what? A what? An opinion and a view. Now, the family member of yours who has this view, do they think their view is wrong?
Absolutely not.
No. They think their view is right. And you think what? Their view is, oh no, let me rephrase that. You think your view is what?
Just right.
That did just say right. You think it's right. You think your view is right. They think their view is right. This is what he's trying to, in my opinion, what Thich Nhat Hanh is trying to tell us, is that everybody has their views based on their experiences, based on their conditioning, based on how they've been taught. I also want to point out, for those who don't know, Thich Nhat Hanh passed away a couple years ago, Vietnamese Buddhist monk, peace activist, and priest, walked alongside Martin Luther King for his work around social justice issues, racial injustice, nominated by Martin Luther King for a Nobel Peace Prize for his work around these issues. So this is coming from somebody who spent his life fighting, also living in exile from Vietnam. He spent his life fighting these issues. So this wasn't somebody who said this and was kind of hiding out. He is the one who gets credited really for the phrase engaged Buddhism, which is, as a Buddhist practitioner, go into the world and fight these issues. But fight these issues with love and kindness and compassion and an understanding, coming back to your question, that while we as individuals may believe that racism is wrong, homophobia is wrong, and all the other things that go along with that are wrong, other people don't think that way. And if they're coming from views that are filled with anger and hatred, pouring more anger and hatred onto that, how are we any better than they are?
It's very compassionate with them.
So the practice is not to feel, for me, this is my experience with this, is not to feel that all of a sudden I'm just going to agree with their views or like their views or take their side. I'm going to keep my views. I have some views that evolve and change over time, and some I'm pretty certain will never change. But can I at least listen to other people's views? I always say, every homophobic, every racist, I want them here. I want them to learn the practice of loving kindness and compassion. We cannot divide ourselves and think that we are better than people who are racist and homophobic. That's the problem. If we think we are better than somebody who is that way, there is no room for conversation. There's no room for dialogue. There's no room for understanding. There's no room for compassion. I want to understand, why is somebody that way? Why are they racist? Why are they homophobic? What were they taught? Why do they believe this? What are they afraid of? Why does it bother them? When these dialogues take place, when this understanding takes place, then maybe there's a chance to cut through some of that, one person at a time. And so having compassion and love for these people, I mean, I grew up in an upper class white Jewish neighborhood. You know how many homophobic racists I grew up around? People that I were friends with since childhood. That's how they are now. It's sad, but that's how so many of them are. So am I going to hate them because they are that way? No. Do I agree with their views? Absolutely not. But does it then create opportunities to have dialogue with them? Like, dude, really? Why? So you have a problem with this now, but you were cool with it then? I don't understand. Like, I want to have these conversations with people. So yeah, one in the back and then we'll close. Yeah.
Just at the end of meditation, you say, nowhere to go, nothing to do, and no one else to be.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the next week, but I don't know, no one else to be part. I was kind of curious to hear more
Yeah. So, so the question was, at the end of every meditation, I always say, nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be, everything beautiful just as it is. And so your question is around that, no one else to be. The reason that I say that is similar to what I said earlier. Very often people are not okay with who they are. Very directly, very simply. I mean, I don't need to show of hands, but just ask yourself, how many people in this room right now, today and throughout their life, are actually comfortable with who they are and are okay with who they are? Versus how much of your life have you been trying to be someone else, living in someone else's, idea or mold of you, trying to be what somebody else thought you should be, trying to be what you thought you should be. Most people don't wake up and be like, yeah, I'm good. I'm a good person. I like my life. I'm happy. Yeah, I had some troubles. I had some difficulties. I've been through some heavy stuff, but I'm a relatively decent person and I'm cool with who I am. Most people don't say that. Most people roam around all day long thinking like, I'm not good enough. I need to be someone else. I need to be like them. I need to be how I was 10 years ago. I need to be who I'm going to be 5 years from now, right? Most people don't grow up going through school being told that, just get a C, you'll be good. No, it's just push. Be better, be better, be better. Bigger, faster, stronger. Everything has to be more. Again, it comes back to craving and greed and desire that people think they're never enough. So you don't need to be anyone else. Just be a kinder, gentler version and a more authentic and honest, real version of who you already are. And the truth is, no matter how much your head spins like you're going to be someone else, impossible. You are just you. And then just to completely confuse you all, then you have the Buddhist teachings that says there is no you anyway, so you're so you're not even that person. So you can't be anyone else because you're not even yourself. Clear?
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. We're going to join palms and close on that. And the benefit of this practice, we share it with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Lauren and her family during their time of suffering. All right, before you all head out, our Dharma Bum host Hazel has a couple announcements. And as Hazel's coming up, we're looking for 2 hosts for Thursday night, and we're going to start having hosts on Saturdays as well. So if you want to learn the code of how to break into the temple and steal everything and do what Hazel's about to do, let us know. Thanks, Hazel.
Hello. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it, then bring it back whenever you're done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. If a few people could stay to close and latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you. I really am.